Hello and welcome to this short video introducing you to the computer-based examinations for F8, Audit and Assurance. In this video, we will briefly look at the structure of the computer-based exam for F8 so that you're familiar with the new format. However, the main focus is to take an in-depth look at the constructed response questions and the tools provided to you in a computer-based exam. We will then look at how these tools will be used in F8. Lastly, we will take a look at the resources available to help you prepare for your F8 computer-based exam. So let's begin with the structure of the F8 exam from September 2016. Among the resources available, there is a full F8 specimen exam. We will point you towards all the relevant resources at the end of this video. You should use this specimen to familiarise yourself with the format of the exam. The F8 exam will consist of two sections, Section A and Section B. Section A contains 3 objective test case questions worth 10 marks each. Each case is comprised of a common scenario and 5 associated objective test questions, each worth 2 marks. Section B contains 3 longer questions, which we refer to as constructed response questions. In the F8 exam, one of these constructed response questions is worth 30 marks, and 2 of them are worth 20 marks. The rest of the video will focus mainly on the constructed responses, as these differ from subject to subject. On that basis, then let's look at the constructed response questions in F8 in more detail. Constructed response questions are the longer form questions in the exam, and unlike objective test questions, which request a specific type of response from you, such as an MCQ, constructed response questions require you to construct your own answer. In F8, as already mentioned, there will be 3 constructed response questions. 1 will be 30 marks and 2 will be 20 mark questions. Just like the paper-based exam, it will be very important that you manage your time effectively to ensure that you have a good attempt at all the questions. In F8, each constructed response question will contain a detailed scenario and a number of requirements that need to be attempted. These questions have the same requirements as a paper-based exam, but the method of creating your answer will be different. The F8 computer-based exam will present you with either a spreadsheet or word processing tool to produce your answer to each question. However, it is likely for F8 that it will be predominantly word processing tools that you will be provided with. And remember, this is essentially the equivalent of the blank answer book you receive in a paper-based exam. At this stage, it's important to remember that the aim of the F8 exam is to test your audit knowledge. Therefore, remember that no matter what format you sit the exam in, the questions are looking to test your ability to answer the question, not to test your computer skills. You should bear this in mind when watching the rest of the video. This is an example of how a word processing tool could be presented to you in the F8 exam. It is worth reiterating again that due to the nature of the questions in F8, the majority of constructed response questions will use the word processing tool. There are a couple of things to note here. On the left-hand side of the screen is the scenario, and at the top you can see that you're told how many requirements are connected to this scenario. In this case, there are 5, so you should expect to address 5 requirements relating to Mila Cola. On the right-hand side of the screen is the requirement and the response space. In this case, you have been presented with a blank word processing sheet in which to construct your response. Also note that you are told how many marks this requirement is worth, and just like you would in the paper exam, you should make sure that you take note of this when you're planning and constructing your response. This next requirement is part of the same question. Note that on the left-hand side of the screen you still have the same scenario, and on the right-hand side of the screen is now a new word processing response box. At this time you have been asked to complete 2 requirements within the same box. Again, note that the marks have been provided for each requirement, but these requirements are connected. You are required to explain the difference between the interim and final audit, and then to provide procedures that would be carried out at interim and the impact that this would have on the final audit. These requirements have been provided with the same response box to make it easier for you to answer these related items. You should also note here that as these are the final requirements attached to this scenario, you've also been told the total marks that are available for Mila Cola. In this case, you can see that this is an example of the 30-mark constructed response question. In the F8 exam, for certain questions, you will be presented with a pre-formatted response template in which to complete your answer. This template will take the form of either a 2 or 3 column table and will generally be provided when you are asked to answer requirements surrounding audit risks or control deficiencies. This is an example of a 3-column pre-formatted response in relation to a control deficiencies question, which requires you to do 3 things. Identify the deficiency, recommend a way to correct the deficiency, and to also come up with a test of control that could test the recommendation that you have made. Later on in the video, we'll be looking at answering a question in a pre-formatted response box in more detail. Before we look in detail at answering a question using the word processing tools, let's just pick up on some general points about the tools and guidance that are available to you in the F8 exam. Firstly, let's consider the help function that is available to you. You may have noticed from the word processing example that we just looked at that at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there is a button that says Help. And if you click on this, it will bring up a window which contains 2 tabs: CR Question Help and Exam Instructions, both of which are being presented to you now. If during the exam you need any guidance on how to use the word processing or spreadsheet tools, you can click on Help and then the CR Question Help tab. You should take time to review these as part of your preparation for the real exam, and these are available via the specimen or in the guidance document on the ACCA website. The Exam Instructions tab gives you some general guidance on how to navigate through the exam and review your answers. Again, you should take the time to read these as you work through the specimen exam. Please note that the example provided here is from the specimen, and therefore some of the instructions will differ from what you receive in a live exam. At this stage, it is also worth noting some of the tools that are available. At the top of the screen of every exam, there are a number of options available to you, including an option for symbol, calculator and scratchpad. For F8, the main options to note is the ability to pull up a calculator, which will be very useful if you're asked to calculate ratios or materiality. You can, of course, bring your own calculator to the exam if you prefer. The scratchpad option pulls up a blank word processing box where you can make notes if you wish. However, it must be noted that the scratchpad and anything entered into it will not form part of your submitted answer, and therefore it will be better and more time efficient to make notes or draft your plan in the actual response box. Again, we're going to take a look at this later on in the video. You may have also noticed on the word processing example that we saw earlier, as you can see on the screen here, a constructed response question will be split with the scenario on the left of the screen and the requirement and answer space on the right-hand side. The splitter between the different parts of the screen will be in the middle by default, but can be moved to give more space to either the scenario or the answer space, depending on what you need to see more of. As indicated by the red arrows here, you can drag the splitter in either direction. You may also wish to use the highlight or strike through features which are available on the top toolbar on the screen. Clicking on the highlight feature brings up a choice of highlighting colours. Select a colour and then click and drag across the text that you wish to highlight. The strike through feature works in a similar way. The highlight feature can be used to identify key phrases or figures in the question scenario. And this is really useful to draw your attention to important information when you're answering the question. Any highlighting will be visible for all requirements related to the scenario. This means that when you move between requirements in a constructed response question, you won't lose any information which you've previously highlighted. Strike through could be used to indicate that you've dealt with a particular piece of information in the scenario. Please note that these features are not available in the specimen exam or the constructed response workspace, but they will be available to you in the live exam. The highlighting tool just discussed will be very useful in answering F8 questions, as it will allow you to go through and highlight key points in the scenario and allow you to quickly identify and keep track of the points that you want to develop in your answer. You can see from the example featured on audit risk here that you can use the highlighting functionality to pick out the facts from the scenario that indicate where an audit risk may be present. At a glance, you will be able to establish if you've identified enough facts to score the marks available. For example, this requirement asks for 7 audit risks and responses, and I can easily see that I've already highlighted 7 facts in the scenario which now need further development. Once you have highlighted the relevant points in the scenario, you can very quickly draft a plan for answering the requirement. You can see from the example that I have summarised the highlighted points into a few words in the pre-formatted response area. I am now ready to start drafting my response. I have all the necessary information highlighted, I have a draft plan for the points I want to cover, and now all I have to do is go through each point and highlight this skeleton answer into a complete constructed response. This method of highlighting and noting the points is a very effective way of managing your time in the exam and can be used for all F8 questions. Where there is a pre-formatted response, you can note a few words for each point in the table, or where there is a blank response area, you can simply produce a few bullet points which you can then go back and supplement with more detail. So you can now go through each issue identified and develop it into a complete answer point in relation to audit risk and the relevant response. One of the advantages of having a brief summary of the points in the table is that you can now tackle them in any order. You can either stick to the same order in which they appeared in the scenario, or you can develop the points that you feel more comfortable with first, and then move on to the rest. But crucially, you will always be able to see at a glance which points you still need to develop further in order to submit a full response. Also remember that you can cut and paste your answer points around inside the response area. There are some other important things that I just want to mention in relation to the word processing tool. Firstly, be very careful of using the reset function, which is being pointed out now, as this resets the response area to its original setting and removes any text that you have inserted into the response area. Only use this if you want to completely start again. There will be a warning message telling you, so if you accidentally click this button, you won't immediately lose everything. If you do accidentally clear your response or delete something, you can use the undo function to restore your work, just as you would in any normal word processing package. The undo function is also being pointed out to you now. For examples where you are not provided with a pre-formatted response, you should employ exactly the same exam technique as you would for paper. So you may use bullet points, but you should make sure that you write in full sentences, and you should tailor how much you write based on the mark allocation. This screenshot shows our suggested answer to the 3-mark requirement in relation to the difference between an interim and final audit that we saw earlier for Mila Cola. There are a number of formatting options available to you in this tool, such as bold and underline, and most of them you should be familiar with from using word processing packages at home or at work. You should familiarise yourself with these so you are comfortable using the word processing tool in the exam. However, don't get carried away and spend an excessive amount of time in the exam formatting your answer. Remember, the examiner is interested in your ability to answer the question. With the word processing tool, remember it's also easy to go back and insert an extra point to your answer if something comes to mind later on. It also removes any issues associated with hard-to-read handwriting. You might decide that although you've not been provided with a pre-formatted response, a table is the best way to present your answer. For example, in requirement E, here on Mila Cola, you may wish to insert a table showing the procedures that you will carry out at the interim audit and the impact that this will have on the final audit. By using a table format, you will be able to ensure that for every procedure, you also consider the impact that this will have on the final audit visit. Inserting a table here is easy. All you have to do is click on the table icon as indicated by the red arrow and select Insert Table. You can then choose how many rows and columns you require. This feature will also allow you to insert, delete, or copy and paste rows and columns. You can widen or lengthen the whole table by either dragging the little white boxes on the edge of the table or returning to the table icon and selecting Table Properties. This will also allow you to change the width and height of the table. Again, there are a lot of features available here, but there is no need for them to be overcomplicated. Again, remember that the focus is on the content of your answer, not how you are presenting it. We will end this presentation by looking at the resources available to help you prepare for your F8 computer-based exam. This slide gives you an overview of the learning support resources available for F5 to F9. The demo resources on the left-hand side are designed to introduce the new exams and give an overview of what the new exam functionality and new question types will be. The interactive procedures on the right-hand side are designed to support question practice and also to help you build up the skills necessary to complete the new CBEs. Using the interactive resources regularly will allow you to become familiar with the new exam functionality and will also help you get used to typing if you don't already do this on a regular basis. Let's focus on the full specimen exams and the extra sets of CR questions for a moment. This presentation has used some of the constructed response questions contained in these resources. These are designed to reflect how the live F8 exam will work and give you the opportunity to experience answering F8 questions on the computer. All content provided is exam standard and contains detailed solutions for you to refer to, which are demonstrated in a moment. Apart from giving you access to exam standard questions, it will give you the opportunity to practice with the exam functionality we've seen and talked about here. It will be this practice that will give you familiarity with the tools in the computer-based exams, and this will only increase your chances of tackling an F8 exam on the computer with confidence. As mentioned in the specimen and extra set of CRs, one of the key tools available to you is the ability to review your answer against the suggested solution. Clicking on the Explain Answer box will generate the document that you now see on the left-hand side of the screen, and you will be able to compare your own answer points against those included in the suggested solution. Once you have worked through the full specimen and extra CR exams, ACCA have also provided you with a constructed response workspace. This is an online resource which contains empty spreadsheet and word processing response areas for you to practice answering questions in. In this area, you're also provided with some examples of the pre-formatted responses that you have seen during the presentation that are relevant for F8. And my advice here is that you use this workspace to answer questions from your approved content provider revision book and also to practice the past exam questions available on the ACCA website. These resources are there to ensure that you are prepared for your computer-based exam for F5 to F9. We want to make sure you have the opportunity for the best preparation possible and are able to turn that preparation into success. This brings us to the end of the F8 video. I hope you have found it useful and wish you the very best of luck with your ACCA journey.